Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Minding My Mental Health. This is season two. Go ahead and give a shout out for season two. Thank you so much. It's 2024. This is our first episode of the year, and I am so excited. You guys know what I want you to do. If you are watching us live, I want you to hashtag the word live and let me know where you're watching from. And if you are watching the replay, hashtag the word replay. And again, let me know where you're watching from. You will know if you're watching live because it will literally have the word live up at the top. If it doesn't, it means you're watching the replay. That's okay. The information is the same. It's still great information. Again, let me know where you're watching from. Take this time to share this video, share it to any groups you are a part of, share it to your wall, to your story, to your friends. Today's topic is going to be so informative. And so I want you guys to jump on in here, tag your friends, tag your family. We are talking about dealing with parenting from the perspective of parenting a child diagnosed with ADHD. I have an amazing guest. I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. But if you know of someone who is parenting a child with ADHD, go ahead and take that time to tag them because they don't want to miss this episode. Send it to them because I believe today is going to be something where they can learn a lot of great information, be empowered, which is why we are having Minding My Mental Health. You guys know what I say almost every episode here with Minding My Mental Health. Our goal is to tear down the stigma around mental health in our community and bring awareness to things that affect us so that we can be empowered and grow and be our best selves. So all of that said, thank you for joining. Let's get into this topic with our amazing guest, Dr. Angel Gates. Welcome, Dr. Gates. Thank you so very much. Take a moment to tell everybody about yourself, how you became a parenting coach, an ADHD parenting coach, all of that, your background, and what brought you to this point.
Awesome. First off, thank you so much for having me to be able to share on your platform about a topic that's, like you said, just we need to know more about, to be aware about, and something that's near and dear to me. I am Dr. Angel Gates. I am a mother of four young boys, three who have been diagnosed with ADHD. So we've been on a journey for almost 6 years now when my oldest children were diagnosed with ADHD. So really, as a parent, I wanted to do all that I could to help my children succeed. And even with the 20-year background in healthcare, I realized that I didn't know what I didn't know about ADHD. So I went on a quest of learning to figure out how to best help my children, which led me to, I always say, it was a thing that was frustrating for me, not being able to really connect and parent my children or get the results that I thought I should be getting. So I feel like I'm on a path of purpose, which is really learning about ADHD, not just for my children, but to be able to be in a position to teach other parents about parenting children with ADHD. So I've created Our Journey Through ADHD, which is a business really to just provide information, insight, coaching, support for parents who are dealing with what I'm dealing with, and also to help reduce the stigma of ADHD, specifically in the Black community. I know that we have to get past the stigma to be able to get to a place of awareness and education and to be able to help our children. So this is really what led me to this point in my life, really being able to help my children and realizing that there's just not enough information out about how to parent, that parenting, we do need help sometimes, even in our parenting journey with any children, but specifically those who have specific challenges. You know, we just need someone to just help coach us along the way. And how do we help them succeed, not just for now as their, children, but for my children and for the parents that I work with. I want to help us provide the avenues that our children can advocate for themselves and be successful adults.
So you mentioned your frustrations kind of led you to this place. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those frustrations were and some of the challenges you faced with four children and then three diagnosed with ADHD?
Absolutely. So the frustrations were, of course, trying to parent my children the way I was parented and not getting those results that I had expectations for. And it was just a simple, of course, the busyness or the constant reminders about just doing what I considered simple tasks and not getting those results, or feeling like that I was having to continuously repeat myself. But not understanding that what I expected didn't align with how their brain was working. So getting to a point of saying, okay, I realize that what I'm expecting, what I'm doing is not creating the change that I'm wanting. So I had to take a step back, learn a little more, learn a lot more, learn a lot more about ADHD and understand how my children's brains were working and being able to parent them from that perspective to get the results that I need and for them to be able to grow and be successful and still enjoy life and not be so discouraged or discouraged with not meeting my expectations.
Talk a little bit about when you weren't getting those results. Did you attribute that to I'm not a good mom, or these kids are, they're extra? How did you kind of attribute those results?
So it was more so, and not even, of course, feeling like that I wasn't doing a maybe not a good mom, and not even just for me internally, or hearing the talk or hearing, the comments from others about parenting or how my children were behaving or just even the little snide remarks, being in public. Ooh, if that was my child, I'll do this, getting a lot of that, or, ooh, they ought to be able to sit down somewhere and things like that, when I wanted my children to be able to sit down and behave in a typical fashion that everyone, not just myself, but everyone expected in, particular situations and in particular settings. And even after the multiple sit down, sit down, sit down, but they would still get back up. Right. As if I hadn't said anything, and wondering, of course, and almost the embarrassment of, having my children in public and they're not conforming to the norm, which led me to really try to understand what's going on. Why aren't my children like other children? So it led me to a point of just really trying to understand what ADHD is, how it beyond what society says it is, and being able to understand, then implement to be able to help them fit into societal norms, and even in school.
So I love the fact that you said it led you to a place of trying to understand rather than a place of I'm going to force my will to this place of frustration or anger. You said, no, let me just step back. And I think that's something a lot of people need to hear, that it's okay to step back and say, let me figure out what's going on here, or let me go on some discovery, or either about myself. Because sometimes it's about us, like what is it that triggers me so much when my child does that? Or sometimes it's a bit of both of those things. And so I love the fact that you were able to see that and say, yeah, this is frustrating, but I need to step back and get more understanding. And that's what I want to encourage everybody. If you're hitting a wall, that doesn't mean you're failing. It literally means it may be time for a pause to step back and say, what other things can I learn? How can I grow from this? As opposed to just continuing to run into that wall. Tell us, you said you're an ADHD parenting coach. What is that? How does that help parents? And can you tell us more about how one becomes a parenting coach?
Okay. So absolutely. This was something new to me just in my course of trying to figure out what I needed to do. I realized that, like you said, it starts with me. Being able to understand what was triggering me, what was frustrating me,
right.
And being able to identify those things, because I can't expect change in my children if I'm not willing to change, if I'm not willing to make some adjustments in my thinking process, in my delivery, and in how I parent. I can't expect my children to be anything different. It starts with me. So in me trying to learn and understand, it helped me to understand that parenting has its own challenges. Parenting a child with ADHD has its own challenges. And the parenting coach route for me was, okay, I need help specific for
Mm-hmm.
my children with ADHD. So it took me on a course of just doing some research, and I came across a parenting coach, and I began to learn that it starts with me, that I can't get frustrated on the things that's going on in my home, specifically the behaviors, because it's not an attack on me. Their
Mm-hmm.
behaviors is not an attack on me. Their behaviors is not a reflection of my parenting. People would say that, or children with ADHD, um, people would say, oh, parents are just bad parents. They're poor parenting, but there's
Mm-hmm.
no correlation there. But my parenting does determine their outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to learn more. I researched, and I realized that there are things that I could do as a parent to help them succeed, not only at home, but in the classroom and in society. And that's my ultimate goal for my children. I want
Mm-hmm.
them to be successful young men, successful in their community, in any endeavor that they put their minds to. So it starts now. I can't wait till they're older,
Right.
and I have to help them along the way. And with ADHD, because this is a lifelong condition, I'm walking alongside them,
Mm-hmm.
to support them in their own learning, to support them in advocating for themselves. And I've learned all of that through getting coached
Okay.
from someone specific in ADHD parenting. And that's why I went on this quest to become an ADHD parent coach. If I have this desire, um, there are other parents who also have this desire to want their children to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but just don't know where to start.
Right.
So the ADHD parenting coach is really just there to help you start, help you implement the strategies, provide the resources, provide the support and the coaching you need as a parent to help your children succeed until they get to a point, specifically until they're able to be coached individually.
Mm-hmm.
Because the child has to have a specific mindset to be coached.
Yeah.
Well, until that point, it's the responsibility of the parent to help guide them and coach them and provide the structure in the home and to work with the teachers to get them to that place.
So, how old were your children when they got the diagnosis?
So my three that are diagnosed are currently, I have 10-year-old twins and an 8-year-old. They all received their diagnosis when they were in kindergarten. So my twins were
Mm-hmm.
5 and my 8-year-old had just turned 6. So like I said, we've been on this journey since October of 2018 when my twins
Okay.
were in school. And the diagnosis came as a result of, even in kindergarten, my twins being suspended from school.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they were in pre-K, they were expelled from pre-K, because of behaviors. So with me just trying to figure out, how do I help them in school? How do I help keep
Mm-hmm.
them in school? Because if they're not in school, they're not
Right.
learning. Um, it's when, because I'm in healthcare, I was like, I know I needed some extra guidance. So
Right.
I took my children to a psychologist, and that's when we received our diagnosis. Um, for my older kids. And since then, we've been on a track of being able to help them. And we've seen a
Mm-hmm.
complete turnaround in behaviors, especially in school. They are extremely intelligent, straight A students. But it took me being able to
Mm-hmm.
say, there is something going on. And being
Yeah.
able to listen to the input from the school,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a viewpoint that I didn't have.
Right.
Some of the behaviors I was seeing, well, they were telling me was just, one of my children were extremely impulsive, not in a malicious way to other children,
Mm-hmm.
but just couldn't keep his hands to himself,
Mm-hmm.
or not able to sit down and being extremely disruptive, um, which was impacting him learning.
Right.
So being able to cross that hurdle, has really put us on a trajectory now that they are doing extremely well. But it took me
Yeah.
accepting that I needed for them to have an evaluation to see what was really going on. So that was my twins. So when my 8-year-old, now 8-year-old, was in kindergarten and we started to see those
Mm,
same behaviors, I was pretty much aware of what was going on,
right.
because ADHD is genetic.
Mm-hmm.
So if one sibling has it, then it's a high probability that other siblings has it.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew what to do with my then 6-year-old. And of course, he received his diagnosis in the kindergarten, and we've had some trials, but we're so much better now because I chose to start early.
Yeah. Tell me, with your twins specifically, that
Mhm,
first moment of hearing your twins are about to be expelled or suspended.
mhm.
I know, just from my perspective, I would be like, oh my gosh, right? How did you handle your own mental health during that time of kind of going back and forth, I'm sure, with the school?
Mhm. I was devastated, embarrassed, upset, because the suspension was probably the third strike. So I
Mhm.
had been communicating with the schools
Right.
and other incidents that had been happening in the classroom, receiving a lot of calls, even in kindergarten, receiving a lot of calls about their behaviors in school and how it was disruptive to the
Hmm.
entire class, and to the point to we tried other things in the classroom up until this point to where that was like the next step for them to
Hmm.
receive a suspension. So after that, I was like, okay, this can't happen again.
Yeah.
What's going on? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And let me go communicate what the school has told me to the psychologist.
Hmm.
And that's when we went down the path of them being evaluated for ADHD. So yes, I was definitely at a place of frustration there, not necessarily at my children, because at
Hmm.
that point I was beginning to understand that maybe some of the
Symptoms.
things
Hmm.
that they were experiencing was maybe a little beyond their control,
Hmm.
especially when they could recite the rules, but when it was time for them to
Right.
implement, there was a disconnect.
Did you see it impact their confidence at all? Like getting in trouble at school? How did that impact their confidence, their self-esteem? Because I know I worked with elementary students in public schools for a while, and I would often see they would internalize,
Mhm.
either thinking they are bad
Oh,
children
yes.
or thinking, I just can't, something's wrong with me, those types of things. Did you
Mhm.
see any of that?
I did. And that's one of the things that probably made me act, go on and act when your 5-year-old child says to you, what happened today? I was being bad, or
Hmm.
I'm bad. No, you're not bad.
Right.
You did some things that you weren't supposed to do, but for them to um, describe themselves as being bad, or even perhaps adults or
Hmm.
others or other children making comments to them to where they were taking on the characteristics that someone else told them, or I'm bad. So I was like, no, you're not bad. You made some bad choices, or you didn't follow the directions, but you're not bad. And that's one of the things that a lot of children with ADHD
Hmm.
experience, not just as
Yep.
not just as kindergartners, but throughout school, that they're lazy, that they're disobedient, that they're disrespectful, or they're defiant. These are some of the characteristics that adults who just don't understand are these are labels that adults are placing on these children, so their self-esteem takes a hit. And that's one of the things that I was trying to avoid or prevent for my children, that I wanted their self-esteem to remain intact. So if that means that I have to be proactive to figure out what's going on with them and to be able to help them
Hmm.
mitigate some of the behaviors, I was going to do that, because I didn't want my children walking around saying they were bad.
Right. So speaking of that, getting feedback from the schools and all of that, tell me how you advocated for your kids once they got their
Mhm.
diagnosis, all of that. again, I've worked in the school system. I've worked specifically with children with all types
Mhm.
of diagnoses. ADHD was a common one. Um, what was your role as far as parenting coach and just parent with advocating and
Mhm.
helping them to get the resources that they needed?
Yeah. So for me, I was very open and transparent with the school about their
Mhm.
diagnosis, even about the decision to put them on medication. But my advocacy for my children was that I understand that the medication will help them to focus and to be less disruptive and to be less impulsive, but I'm not going to medicate them to the point to where they're going to be zombies. I
Mhm.
want them to be children, the same grace that you all extend to other children who may have a not so good day. I want that same grace
Right.
extended to my children. And I also advocated for there to be some classroom management, some behavior management in
Mhm.
the classroom so that the school was not entirely dependent on the medication uh,
Mhm.
to remedy all symptoms of ADHD. But it did require that I was open and honest. And I've been from the very beginning honest about
Mhm.
specifically with the school about their diagnosis, about some of the behaviors that I experienced at home, so they were aware, because generally children with ADHD they experience the same behaviors or symptoms in multiple settings.
Mhm.
So I wasn't a parent that said, "Oh, my child wouldn't do that," because
Like, no,
my child
I've seen
did.
them do
I've
that.
seen them do that exact thing. So for me to be open and honest with the teachers, it was saying, yes, I have experienced the same thing at home.
Mhm.
This is how I handle it at home. Maybe you can try this. Maybe we can try this, or trying to get on the same page with the teachers. The teachers would try to implement this type of structure at school. And I say, I'm going to do the same thing at home.
Mhm.
So my children also knew that I communicate with the teacher
Right.
pretty regularly. And if a teacher called me when I have a conversation with my children and I say, I'm talking to your teacher,
Mhm.
um, we're working together, they're going to let me know what's going on. So there, that's how I handle it. And then I've been handling it the same way now. And I even created a journal for one of my 8-year-old's teacher, created a
Mhm.
journal, a teacher's journal, where she's able to document any symptoms. She can document anything that's going on related to how my child is behaving at school, and she has it there. So when I go to parent teacher conferences, she pulls it
That's
out.
good.
This is what's going on. This is what we're working on,
Mhm.
and it's working. And it also helps me to keep the lines of communication open. So she's not having to call me every
Mhm.
2 seconds. She can just jot it down. And then
Right,
when she has
right.
a moment, she can say, "Hey, this is what I did on this day." But I've been very open, and I can say I'm thankful that my children's school have been just
Mhm.
as open and willing to
Good.
communicate. I know that's not the case for a lot of schools and a lot of parents. And I
Mhm.
know a lot of parents have been afraid to share their children's diagnosis
Mhm.
um, with the school, which for whatever reason. But if I could just encourage them to just be open, because there are accommodations available for the
Yep.
children if you communicate, if you're willing to have that conversation, if you're willing to listen to the teacher's point of view as to what's going on with the child, so you all can get on the same page. It makes a difference and has made a difference with me and my children,
Mhm.
even through the difficult conversations that
Right.
the teachers have been, well, I hate to call you, and I say it's okay.
Yeah.
I want you to call me, even when it's something not
Right.